Hello and welcome. I'm one of the Jag Bros hosts, JT Raymond, alongside my two brothers, Jack and Joey. And Jack, you mentioned this in the show notes offline, but the Jaguars have actually won 2 out of 3. So are we going in the right direction in something that we can start building upon? Or is it just simply a case of the fact that the Jaguars beat up on 2 pretty bad teams right now in the Colts and the Patriots? We split our trip to London with a big victory over rookie quarterback Drake May and the struggling New England Patriots. How are we feeling after last Sunday's performance?
Well, at least we got a win, and that's definitely going to be the big question, JT, is we are now 2-5, and we've talked about this a little bit in this season, but in 2022, the Jags were 2-6. They were able to turn it around, finish 9-8, sneak into the playoffs, actually win the division that year too. And so could we potentially have a deja vu? We're definitely going to break that down. I'm just going to say it now. Don't look at the next 5 games because all 5 of them, the Jaguars are going to be underdogs. But hey, before we even get into that, celebrate the Jags victory. They beat the Patriots in London. They're able to come back to Jacksonville. They win 32-16. And really the first nice victory of the season. The Colts, we had some great things, but we almost blew that game towards the end as well. So it started off rough, going down 10-0, and I'm like, oh man, here we go. But Joey, you were the only one of the 3 to call a Jags victory. Do a little quick victory lap. What'd you love on Sunday from the Jags in London?
I loved Trevor, and I loved the offense, and I loved Tank Bigsby. Once again, him proving I was right at the beginning of the season. He played incredible. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned, can we turn it around? It's possible. Trevor seems to be getting into a groove. The offensive line seems to be getting into a groove. And they're going to have to, because I don't see the defense turning it around. If we're going to win games, it's going to have to be us scoring over 24 to more than that, possibly 30 points a game, because even with Campbell, who I liked seeing him out there making a break on the ball, the first time I've seen a corner make a break on the ball at all this year. Cisco maybe starts to be playing a little bit better. He needs to start catching these interceptions, but I just don't see the defense getting that much better. So if there is a turnaround, if there's any hope, it's going to have to all come from the offense. Trevor, BTJ, and Tank, can they carry this season?
Those are the 3 right there. I mean, you could throw in Ingram. Ingram's been nice coming back from that injury. He is actually, this is a crazy stat. Ingram has had 15 targets in the last 2 weeks and has 15 catches. So Trevor's 15 for 15 when he targets Ingram. Now, granted, a lot of those are not long passes, and I still slam the table just as I did all last season. Ingram needs to see red zone targets. For instance, that third and goal in the second half, that kind of fade in the corner to Christian Kirk. That doesn't need to be a pass to Kirk. That needs to be to BTJ or Evan Ingram, your bigger guys, or still not Gabe Davis because he can't catch the ball and is just not a big impact player for us this year. But BTJ or Ingram, I tweeted this out. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I'm watching through Rings of Power Season 2 right now, but it feels like it's a Tank and BTJ saying, hey, we're just going to carry this team right now, because you look at the 2 wins the Jaguars have had. Both of those games are big games for Tank and big games for BTJ. Tank goes over 100 yards his second time, just like he did against the Colts. 2 touchdowns in this game. BTJ has 90 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. So, man, these young guys, Brian Thomas Jr., Tank Bigsby, they are carrying the load for the Jags, just like Sam says to Frodo, hey, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. That's what these guys have been doing for the Jags right now.
Yeah, and let's not forget Parker Washington. That 96-yard punt return was at a critical moment in the game, a moment where Jacksonville, even in the Colts victory, we let our lead slip away multiple times. So that was great to supplement your offensive performance with a 100-yard essentially kick return to get another touchdown. Look, Trevor was great. He was 15-20, which is much more consistent. He only had 193 yards and 1 touchdown. It's not like Trevor is putting up a 302 type of performance every single game, but is certainly a lot better than what we've seen.
That's also because we didn't need him to. We ran it 26 times and 16 in a row.
16 in a row, which was crazy.
Thinking that he was going to throw over 300 yards if we needed him to.
That is fair. But I was going to say that we're starting to see something emerge is when Jacksonville can actually run the ball consistently. Doug's play looks better. And if Jacksonville has at this point actually proven to be a pretty decent run defense, and which is surprising too, because oftentimes we're trailing in this game in games this year, including when we were down 10-0 in the first quarter against the Patriots. And yet Ramondre Stevenson and the rest of the running back crew could not do really anything on the ground. Drake May was actually the leading rusher with 3 for 18. So in some respects, we're starting to see a formula where Jacksonville can win games. It's a team where we're slowing down their run. And to your point earlier, Joey, the offense just has to be in the mid-20s to give ourselves a fighting chance to win games.
Can I just say too, great call out on Parker Washington. Love that play. Can we please get him some targets in the offense? I mean, if this guy goes out and gets almost 100-yard return, it's inexcusable that he has 5 targets this season, less than 1 a game. I mean, I get Christian Kirk is a big name on the trade market right now. Maybe that happens. Maybe that doesn't happen. But regardless of if you do trade Kirk in the next couple of days, is the trade deadline is November 5th or 6th, coming up in less than 2 weeks. Parker Washington needs to get more involved in the offense. I don't care how you do it. Run him over the middle, run his screen, but he's too athletic, too much of a playmaker. He had some good kick returns too. Like, he's got to have more than at least 1 target a game. It's got to be 3 or 4. To me, get Parker involved.
You said it, Jack. Getting Parker involved, I think, is important. We saw last year he was a rookie thrown into the fire pretty much, and he had some really good highlight catches. Some of the only touchdowns came from him. And I wouldn't say take Christian Kirk out or take his reps. Take Gabe Davis. Honestly, he's been mid at best. And you got to start showing this team that your play dictates how much you play on the field. Because this was the first time we sat Antonio Johnson, and it looked better because his play has not been up to par. I don't know what's going on with Mason Smith, but he was a healthy scratch, saying his performance isn't good enough right now. You got to show people that if you play lackluster, give it to the other person. This isn't the time to be, oh, well, we paid this person this much money or whatever. If you're not playing well, you sit. And Gabe Davis is not playing well, and Parker is. He's earned the right to be on this field. And then another person who's earned the right to be on this field is Walker Little, who came in for Cam Robinson and played amazing left tackle. The offensive line, once again, was very good. Trevor had no pressures or sacks, I don't think. That's going to have to keep going. This offensive line is the key to making this offense run. As we see, the first 4 games, the offensive line stunk, and our offense stunk. We have finally figured something out with this offensive line. I don't know what's happened, what Phil Rauscher said, or maybe Doug was right and they just needed to play with each other long enough. Not sure, but they're playing great, and it has to continue if we want to make this run. That's what happened in 2022. The line started to play better, and we made that run. So it also starts with this offensive line.
Well, before we start to give them a ton of credit, we have been playing some bottom half of the league pass rushes. The Patriots 10, the Colts are bottom 10. And despite the Bears having a really good front 7 from a run stopping perspective, they also don't have a ton of pressure. So all these teams we've been playing recently don't have great defensive lines. And it's going to be put to the test here with the Packers, who have a top 5 pressure rate coming next week.
It's Houston who's got a good defense line, but you're right. We have been facing a lot of bottom defensive lines, JT. But I also wanted to bring up one bad thing is the starting slow. I think that we need to start with the ball. This whole waiting until the second half. If we don't start hot, we're going to lose this gauntlet of games coming up. These aren't teams that you can go down 10 and then try to come back. You need to start fast. We didn't get the ball barely in the first quarter because our defense just lets people go 16 plays or just milk the clock in the beginning. So I think we need to take the ball in the first quarter at the first kickoff because our defense starting off is just terrible.
Yeah, I tweeted this out during the first quarter. I said there's 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, and the Jaguars defense getting torched on the first drive. Feels like every drive is just an easy. This was a Patriots offense that was one of the worst offenses in the league at third down conversion. They convert 3 on that first drive, and then they convert 2 more on the second drive to get up 10-0 early. But yeah, we keep hinting at it. The Jaguars face a real gauntlet now. They are back home. They play the Packers, and then they're away against the Eagles. They play the Vikings at home, away against the Lions, bye week, and then home against the Texans. So you're 5 games in a row against 5 teams that look like legit playoff contenders. And I'm going to go ahead and give away my answer of I still don't believe in this team, and I have a pretty glass half empty approach. I don't expect us to make a run because the last legit Jaguars win against a good team was almost a year ago away in Houston back in November of last year. The last 3 wins we have are home against the Panthers, who are trash, and then we had a win home against the Colts, who are not good at all either, and we barely won that game. And then we won the game in London against the Patriots, who seem like they're destined for a top 3, top 5 pick as well. So we haven't beaten a legit team, and a lot of these teams are coming from the NFC North, which is a loaded, stacked, best division in the NFL, and they're circling a game like Jacksonville saying, hey, this is an easy win. This is a win we need to have. And this Jaguars team, to me, still feels very disjointed. Joey, you talked about it, Mason Smith being a healthy scratch. I talked about last episode of this Roy Robertson Harris was a move that I believe from Balky was to go get his guys like Mason Smith some playing time, some playing reps. And what does Doug do? He's like, oh, I'm not even going to put him on the active roster for the second time this year. A top 50 player that can't even get on the field, not even a second or third string guy. This team is disjointed. It's still broken to me. I hope I'm wrong. I'm cheering for the Jags to win and potentially go on a streak, but my confidence meter, if you're like 1 out of 10, it's maybe a 2 for the Jags right now. But what about y'all? Do y'all have any more confidence, or are y'all kind of right there with me?
I'm a little more optimistic than you, I think. I mean,
Shocking.
They only need to steal 2 games out of this gauntlet, which is a high thing to do. I understand this team isn't playing well enough to do that. Honestly, our best bet is hopefully one team underestimates us, and then we just happen to have one game where everything goes right. And then the back half of the season is easy, but we also don't play easy teams well. We've lost to a lot of easy teams at the beginning of the year, so there's no saying that we will go and win those back half games. So it is very up in the air whether we can actually turn this around. And I really think this Packers game is going to tell us everything we need to know. I think if you lose this game, which is going to be a very hard game to win, but if you lose, there's no way. But if they somehow pull it out here, I think it changes everything. It changes the attitude. I'm not saying we're going to the playoffs, but I think this team may turn it around. Whether it's too late, I don't know, but it's all riding, I think, on this game. And the question is, will they even show up? Every time it seems like it's riding on this game, they lay a fat egg. So we'll see.
That's exactly what I'm going to say. Because, man, I feel that, and I want to be like, hey, this is a potential turnaround. But every time we're like, we start 0-2, we're like, we could have won both those games against the Dolphins and the Browns, which were like, they were playoff teams last year, which looks like a huge joke right now. But we're like, we're going to go turn around, big primetime game Monday night against the Bills. We get completely trounced. We get completely embarrassed, such to the point where Sunday Night Football next week against the Eagles, they're like, no way we're putting the Jaguars there. We're flexing that out for the Colts. And then again, we finally get our first win this season. We're like, hey, we play pretty well against in London. We need to go 2-0 in London. And what do? We go and get embarrassed by Caleb Williams and the Bears. We drop 4 touchdown passes. So I get the narrative, and I'm hopeful for it, but I just have no confidence that we're going to be able to do that against a very good, very, very good stretch of teams.
Yeah, we go Packers, Eagles, Vikings, Lions, Texans. 5 teams that are all trending toward the playoffs, all 5 very, very talented teams, certainly more talented than us. And then you go to Joey's point, the 5 easy teams, the Titans, the Jets, the Raiders, and the Titans again, and the Colts. If you had flipped those 2 5s, you could convince me that there's a path forward. But you have to go 3-2 in these next 2 games, if for no other reason than momentum. And I love what you said about the Packers. The Packers are at home. The Packers are 5-2. They're due for a let up. They've looked excellent pretty much the entire year. Even when they lost their quarterback for part of the season, they still look very, very good. They're a terrible matchup for us on both sides of the ball. We'll break that down here in a second. The only thing you have going for you is that you're at home. The Vegas line has moved where it opened at Pick'em to now it is Jacksonville plus 4.5. Historically, Doug Peterson's been very good as an underdog and very good as a home underdog in particular. However, we've been saying now for months that we're not sure Doug Peterson has not lost the confidence in the locker room. This is as close to a playoff game, if you will, that Jacksonville may ever see through all season. So go out and win it.
The Jaguars YouTube account posted, Doug's celebration, the game-winning speech after the win. And to be honest, looking at that locker room, it did not look like a team that had just won a pretty sound game where they doubled the other team's point. It looked like, hey, we're ready to be out of London. And I'm just like, man, I always say winning cures a lot, but the Jags need to win a ton more to cure whatever in the world is going on in Jacksonville, because it still feels really toxic and right on the edge. And Doug Peterson is still number one in every poll for hottest seat in the NFL right now. And Balky should be too. It's crazy that he's not.
Yeah, that is crazy. But let's go ahead and start breaking down, as JT said, a terrible matchup for us because, as we said, this is pretty much like a playoff game. A lot rides on this. If you win this game, you may go out and get a trade and try to strengthen this defense. If you go and lose, then you start trading away your players because the season's over. So let's break it down. Let's pray that we don't lay an egg and they actually show up for a game that actually matters.
All right, so let's start on the offensive side of the ball in something we've seen Trevor start playing better. Tank Bigsby's looked good. Let's compare that to the defense that we're about to see in the Packers. What most people don't realize is the Packers are kind of a sneaky, okay defense right now. They're actually trending around top 10 in a lot of categories in that kind of 8 to 12 range. When you're talking about what's the defense like versus wide receivers, what's the defense like versus the quarterbacks and running backs, they've been sneakily pretty good. And it's not like they played a horrible schedule either. They played against the Eagles and was able to contain them. They played against the Texans, which they just won thanks to a McManus miss of a field goal the last second. They played the Cardinals, who've had a good defense, and they played the Vikings and the Rams. So you've seen them take on some good competition and hold them lower than their expected total. So where do you see Jacksonville being able to exploit this Packers defense?
Well, you said sneakily. I don't even think it's sneakily. This is a very good defense. They just held CJ Stroud to his worst game ever, like 86 yards for the entire game. So that's not good for us. And then they're also one of the highest takeaway defenses as well, as we saw against the Bears, who also are up there. That's not good for us as well. We're going to need to really cover up the football and make sure that we're not turning it over, because that will be backbreaking for us. This is a game that could easily get out of hand fast if we don't play well and we don't play pristine pretty much. We can't make mistakes against this team because they will exploit it. When they need to make a play, they make the play. So this is a team that everything has to go right pretty much.
That's the thing. This is a big play defense. The Packers right now are 7th in sacks with 20 sacks for the season. They're 3rd in interceptions on defense. They're with 9. They're 1st in fumble recoveries with 8. They cause turnovers. They also have a pick 6 this season. If there is one hole so far, is very good running backs have been able to run well against the Packers. So the Packers have played 7 games so far, and they've given up 400-yard rushers: Mixon, Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, and then Aaron Jones almost had another 100-yard game against them with 22 carries for 93 yards. And so I don't need to hear any of this from Coach Doug Peterson, coach speak of, ETN is still our number one back. Tank, if we have any hope, Tank has got to run hard. He's got to make big plays. He's coming off another great game, and we've got to be able to, JT, this is a key that you pound a lot, and it's so true for Doug and the Jags. They've got to win the time of possession. They've got to save this poor defense and bad secondary, keep the Jags defense off the field as much as possible. And so Tank has been running for 6.2 yards per carry, just behind Derrick Henry, who's having a monster season. What in the world? 6.5 yards per carry. Then Saquon Barkley at 6.2 as well. Tank has got to be the feature back, and he's got to have a big game. And then BTJ is going to have his toughest matchup going up against Jair Alexander, a top 3 corner in the league. But I've said it before, this offense seems to revolve and only have success when those guys, Tank, BTJ, and throw in Evan Ingram as well, have a good game.
Here's my concern, though. If you actually watch the game scripts for Jacksonville, when Jacksonville is winning, Tank plays. When Jacksonville is losing, it's almost always Dearness Johnson, assuming that ETN is still out, or ETN, because they want the pass blocking as well as the pass catching ability of those other two guys over Tank. So there's a real opportunity. And we saw this last game, even against New England. And quarter one, anybody who had Tank Bigsby starting him in fantasy is starting to hit the panic button and say, oh no, what did I do? Because Dearness Johnson played almost all of the snaps and Tank Bigsby did nothing. It wasn't until all of a sudden it was a tie game or we took the lead that we started to see Tank unlocked. So Jaguar fans, don't be surprised if you don't see Tank Bigsby out there if we're trailing by 10 points midway through the second quarter.
Yeah, that's the only one downside as of right now with Tank is his passing catching. It's not great. He got one pass thrown to him and he dropped it, and they were like, well, we're not going to do that for the rest of the game. So it is a little bit of a tell when he comes in, okay, it's a run, and then when the other people come in, it's most likely a pass. So we got to be able to either get him easier throws or somehow it needs to be less of, hey, like this is what's happening when this guy comes in. It just shows you also how good Tank is, that even though they know it's a run when he's coming in, he's still getting 5, 6, breaking big ones because he's playing so well. I mean, his cuts when he hits the hole, he's seeing the hole way better than Travis is. I think it's just really good watching him play. I don't really ever see him get stuffed unless the offensive line just absolutely gets blown up.
I was going to say, unless it's a 3rd and short, then we always get stuffed.
Well, yeah, but you have to, if you watch that fourth when we went for it when we never should have.
Oh yeah, they got
Ezra
blown
Cleveland
up.
got tossed like a rag doll on the ground.
There's 5 Patriots back there.
Like
maybe more. Maybe
I don't
it was
care how good of a
11.
running back you are. You're not getting past when the guy's already in your face when you get the
Derrick
ball.
Henry finds a way. Derrick Henry, doesn't matter how bad the offensive line is, always finds a way.
Derrick Henry's Hall of Famer, also
Sure,
maybe one of the best running backs ever.
The Ravens are crazy. I mean, just some of these stats are bonkers. I'm not trying to go off on but I watched that Monday night game and just the gap between a Ravens team who's a contender and where we thought the Jaguars back in 2023 were going to take this step next year. I mean, they have Derrick Henry, first place, and Lamar Jackson is a top 10 running player in the NFL as well. He's undefeated Monday Night Football, 20 touchdowns, no interceptions. But anyways, back to this game. Again, on defense, looking at the Packers, there are some holes in that front seven. They're playing some younger guys like Edgerrin Cooper, 2nd-round pick out of Bama, Javon Bullard, safety from Georgia, which I'll just say on this too, because, Mason Smith has gotten a lot of buzz in Jaguars world. He was picked number 48 in the draft. Javon Bullard went at the end of the 2nd round in this past year's draft, and he already has 40 tackles, on pace for 100 tackle season. So there was a lot of talent that so far it's kind of looking like we missed. But
shocking.
I forget, Joey or JT, you said Trevor's played better these last 3 games. He's put up 74% completion. He's got to keep that streak going. The over-under is 50 or 51 points. For the Jags to have any shot of winning, it feels like they're not even just going to have to score mid-20s. Either you're going to have to score mid-20s and just crush the time possession, or you're going to have a game where you score over 30 points against a good top 10 level defense.
The biggest matchup we actually can take advantage of, I think, is going to be Evan Ingram. If you look at the better tight ends that the Packers have played this year, it's taking advantage of some of those holes that the Packers do actually still have in their defense. Colby Parkinson for the Rams went for 7 for 52, and then Trey McBride, who's had an up and down year with the Cardinals, had 8 for 92 as well. So the chance for him to have 5 to 10 receptions and somewhere between 60 to 100 yards, I feel like this, if there's a scenario Jacksonville wins from offensively, it's going to be because of Evan Ingram.
I think it's Evan Ingram, and then it's also going to be, can we make the big plays? This is not a game that we're going to be able to dink and dunk it or drive down the field the entire time. We're going to need to make big plays, long passes, and where we steal some points somewhere, because the team that we're playing is just better than we are. And if we try to just methodically kind of do it, there's going to be a lot of 3 and outs, and we're not going to score a lot. It's going to have to be long bombs to BTJ, where even though he's covered amazingly, he still comes down with it. Or Evan Ingram is just lighting them up. And we're actually taking long shots with Evan. It's got to be some big plays, and we got to take some chances. I mean, what is there to lose? Just go for it.
Yeah. If I'm a Packers fan, that'd be the one thing that scares me. Can BTJ have a big game where he gets multiple of those huge 50, 60, 70-yard plays? Because, yeah, he's a rookie, but he's top 10 in a ton of stats right now. He's 513 yards, which puts him first among rookies, 6th overall among all wide receivers, 4 touchdowns, first among rookies, 8th overall, and he's got the second longest catch at 85 yards for the season, and also has 17 yards per catch. I mean, it's crazy to even talk about, but he's playing at a top 10 level receiver in the entire league, and the best rookie so far, with Neighbors being on and off the field with some injuries. And so if I'm a Packers fan, I'm not too worried about this game, except for 2 reasons. One, can Brian Thomas Jr. go off? And then number 2, is this just a situation where the Packers get lulled to sleep and miss this game and miss showing up for this game as a trap game, because they have several big division rivalry games coming up after this game in Jacksonville?
I think it's the perfect time to transition to the defensive side of the ball. And at this point, we have not seen any type of good play from the defense outside of the first half against the Dolphins. And so that's extremely concerning when you're going up against a quartet of pretty good wide receivers for Green Bay in Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Dontavius Wicks, and then the best of them all, Jordan Reed, who, if I was scheming against the Jaguar defense, the one thing that I would immediately notice is we almost never take away your first read or what you were designing your play to do. You could almost certainly undress us from that perspective. So I would expect Reed to have 100 yards and at least 1 touchdown against us, because I would assume that's what Green Bay would want to do first and foremost.
Yeah, this is a real bad matchup for our defense. They are a very good deep ball. Reed is great at catching the long ball. Christian Watson, also really fast, can take the top off the defense. And as we've seen, that's one of the things that we give up the most, are deep passes. People come down with them. We're not really picking them off or anything like that. So that's really scary. And then they also have 2 great tight ends with Luke Musgrave, and then also Kraft is playing very well as well. So as you have seen, any tight end that plays the Jaguars is going to go off. So now you have 2 to handle. That's really scary. And then, yes, we've done well against running backs, but this is a very, very good running back in Josh Jacobs. Even though you stop him half the game, he may still break it towards the second half. Like, it's someone you'll constantly have to bottle up, because he can have that huge breakout run. Going to be, if we win this game, because I don't see the defense stopping them that often, it's going to be a high scoring game.
He's a tough runner, and Jacksonville's been okay. They haven't been awful like they are in passing. They've been okay in the run defense. But here's the thing. Jacksonville has consistently looked soft on defense, and I'm just not sure how much they want to tackle Jacobs if he's getting 15 to 20 carries a game.
100%. In the worst part is the one kryptonite that the Packers and Jordan Love has is Jordan Love will make some dumb throws. He'll make some bad throws. He leads the league right now with 8 interceptions. He leads the league in turnover worthy plays, but it almost doesn't matter because this defense seems allergic to getting any sort of turnovers, and feels like every preview episode we're like, man, we're probably due for some turnovers, and in some ways we should be, because this is a team that will make big plays. Jordan Love is second in touchdowns, passing touchdowns, even though he's missed some time, but also first in interceptions, and you're just like, this is the game to finally flip that narrative, to have Campbell actually catch an interception, or Cisco make a catch on an interception, or Jones has had a few drops on interceptions. But at some point, you are who you are. We're almost halfway through the season. We only have 2 turnovers. At some point, that is your identity, and that is that this is a defense that just doesn't make big plays. Unlike the Packers, who all they do is make big plays, this is especially a Jags secondary that just has not made big plays. And so he may make some dumb throws in this game, but I don't have a ton of faith that we're going to come up with an interception.
I got a question for y'all, because the practice window has just opened up for Foye Oluokun and Andrew Wingard. If they're able to start, who do you play at linebacker? Do you keep Ventrell Miller, who's been playing very well, probably played better than Devin Lloyd? Do you keep him in over Devin Lloyd? And then obviously if Foye can play, he's going to play. And then do you switch out Savage for Andrew Wingard? Because the second safety play, even though Cisco isn't playing as well as he can, he's still easily the best safety that we have right now. So do you switch Andrew Wingard in, or what do you guys think should go down with these 2 new guys who could possibly play?
This is tough because you're traveling over from London. You're going to have a shorter week of practice. You're not really going to have a chance to install much of anything to try to slow down this Packers defense, except for your base stuff. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of radically different stuff. However, they're going to run some 4 wide receiver sets. They are going to put us in conflict with a linebacker, and Foye and Miller are certainly our best linebackers, but they're better against stopping the run than they are coverage. And so if you have a situation where Dontavius Wicks is lined up one-on-one with any of those 3 guys, Lloyd, Foye, or Miller, you're in debt. Because and guess what? That will happen.
Or Ronald Darby, too.
I mean, pick your poison. Like, that's bound to happen because he's your corner. But my point is, the linebacker, they like to pass the ball. They're more dangerous passing the ball. I think you probably have to leave Lloyd, because you have to just hope that he's slightly faster and slightly better in coverage than Miller or Foye. But it's not a good position to be in if you're Jacksonville with the current personnel and how we're structured.
And Lloyd, I mean, the man is on top of someone, and all he has to do is take 1 step left or right, and then he gets turned around and just lets them catch the ball. It's really disgusting. And Ventrell Miller, I think he can be better. He's still almost a rookie because he lost all of last year, and so he doesn't have the playing time. But he seems to be getting there, just a little late. I think in a couple games, maybe in a year, he can actually be able to cover better. But you're right that I hope that we're in nickel a lot, because we're going to need that extra back. I hope that it's Jerry and Jones can really step up. He plays pretty well at corner right now. And if he could have another big game, this could be a big game for him.
Statistically, outside of Campbell, Jarian Jones has been our best cover corner. He finished last game our 4th highest PFF graded guy at 82. He's the highest on a lockdown percentage at just over 55%, which, shocker, Monteric Brown is second, way ahead of Darby. Like, we just gotta find a way to get Darby off the field as much as possible, because whoever for the Packers, again, this is a talented wide receiver corps. They're gonna burn Darby just like everyone else has all season. But to answer your question, Joey, I like Wingard. He brings a lot of energy and juice this defense. But if he is able to play Sunday, which I think he's probably still another week or 2 away, it's probably going to be more rotational, with Savage still starting that strong safety spot. Foye is the guy where he's started so many games. Last season, he started like 98, 99% of the snaps on defense. You can bring him right back in and he's ready to go. Wingard, so much has shifted. He being a new defensive coordinator, doing defensive scheme. I think you would ease him in, just see how he does. But on linebackers, Ventrell Miller's played well enough, and Doug has even said that this week, that he is going to get snaps, whether that's quote unquote the starting or he's just starting, coming off the bench and still playing 40 to 50% of the snaps. He has been a nice surprise where there's not been hardly any nice surprises on this Jags defense.
All right, it's time for keys to the game, offensively or defensively or special teams. Where are we going with this one, Joey?
I'll start off with the offense. As I said, it's going to be on BTJ needs more than one big play. It needs to be multiple, and it needs to be able to kind of flip the field and just bring that energy that this offense needs to play well. That's, I think, the only way we win. Even if Tank has a good game and we just run it a lot, I don't think we win. I think it has to be these long bombs, take the top off the defense. BTJ, I still think that catch last week, maybe one of the best catches I've ever seen, with Christian Gonzalez, a top corner, draped all over him. The concentration to catch that ball is just outrageous, and you have to take these shots, and they have to connect.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of that, Joey. I'm going to actually do a joint offense and defensive stat. Looking at big plays, I think Jacksonville's offense needs to have, and I'm defining big plays by 20 yards or more. I think Jacksonville's offense needs to have +2 big plays compared to Green Bay's offense. If we can limit Green Bay's offense to less, let's say 1 or 2 big plays of 20 yards or more, and we're getting 4 or 5, I think we win. If it's like, hey, they got 4, but we got 6, I think that could translate into a victory. So I think it's these big momentum plays. Jacksonville is also been extremely emotionally soft and mentally soft through these things. So if they can use those big plays at home to give them a little bit of a spark too, I think that would be key.
Oof, man, it feels like the Jags need like 4 or 5 keys on both sides of the ball. It's hard to even just pick one, because unfortunately we've lost games in so many different ways, right? Where offensive line plays well, our receivers drop a bunch of touchdowns. Our receivers and Trevor plays well, our defense gets torched. And so I'm going to try to narrow it down to one, starting with offense. And at the end of the day, it's got to come down to your leader. It's got to come down to your franchise player, the guy you paid $250 million. He's been playing well the last 3 weeks, last 3 games. He's got to rally the troops and make sure from an offensive standpoint that we never fall behind more than 7 points. Joe, you had a great point. I don't see us coming back from double digits on any of these teams. So if the defense lets up a touchdown that first drive, the Jaguars have to respond right away. You can't even give them an opportunity to even be down 4 and then give them the ball back, because then they can go up 10 the next drive. So the offense has to always respond and always keep them in, and then just hope that we're able to find a way to close out a game, which technically we really have not done so far this season.
Yeah, you're right, Jack. And then my keys to defense is going to be, they have to get a turnover somewhere, somehow. They got to steal one and give it back to Trevor, because if we're going to play where they score, we score, because I don't think this defense, like the Packers are going to get theirs. They're going to score, and I think they're going to score quite a bit. But if we can steal one where we score and then we steal it and then we score again, I think that's the game winner. They have to get one somewhere, a fumble, interception. I don't know, but that defense has to come up with at least one turnover, or we have to win the turnover battle by 1 if we're going to be turning it over. But we have to have one more than they do.
Which we've yet to win the turnover battle once. So maybe it is finally our time to do it. And if you're going to do it, it's got to be getting after Jordan Love. Jordan Love has one of the biggest gaps of QBR from when he has a clean pocket to when he faces pressure. The Packers have a pretty good and a very healthy offensive line right now, so it's going to be a big challenge, and this is where your star players on the edge have to have monster games. Josh Hines-Allen has led the team in pressure rate, but has not had a big sack season. I believe just 2 for the year. Trayvon Walker has done much better with 6 sacks so far. But if you're the number 1 overall pick, you've got to you've got to play consistently at a super high level. So this has to be a game where we're in Jordan Love's face all the time. And I'm going to say at least 4 sacks, which the Packers don't do often. And so this got to be a big game from our edge guys.
I like both yours. I would choose those. The only thing that I'll add is third down conversion. The Packers are actually only 50% on touchdowns in the red zone. So if you can get them to stall out and potentially settle for some field goals, that is your opportunity. Jacksonville's been dreadful at that, as they have in most categories. So I would like to see probably 25% or better, meaning worse, I guess, in that sense, for the Packers offense on third downs.
Here we go. It's predictions time. And as we always say, we want to hear your predictions too. I'm super curious what Jags fans are going to say, how we're feeling. Do we think, kind of a little bit more like Joey, this could be a turnaround point, maybe a little bit of 2022 magic in the air? Shout out to any Magic fans on the pod. This is their opening of the season on Wednesday as well. But predictions. Jags, Packers, 1 p.m. Eastern in Jacksonville. Not Trevor Bank, but Everbank. What do the Jags do? What is the final score for that game?
I will pick another loss, 34-20. I think they do whatever they want offensively, and our offense is fine. And that's pretty much the story of who we are.
I will have another loss as well. I think it's going to be closer. I've been listening to a lot of people on the spread, 4.5 points. There's a lot of people saying that, this is actually the game to pick the Jags to cover the spread, maybe not necessarily to win. I do think we could cover the spread. I think this is a game where our offense plays better than expected, but I just don't have any faith in our defense, and I don't love us closing out the game because a lot of closing out games has so much to do with coaching and putting your players in position to win. I don't think our players trust our coaching. Our coaches have not executed all season. The Packers have great coaching. They're 5-2. They have momentum. I think they're going to honestly want this win more than us, which is terrible. But give me the Packers 30 to the Jaguars 27 in this game. Joey, are you going to keep the streak rolling? Joey has always picked the Jaguars to win. So he is currently 2-5 with the Jags. JT is actually in the lead at 4-3, and I am at 3-4. Joey, another Jags victory?
You know it! I am picking the Jags to win. I don't know if I've been drinking too much Teal Kool-Aid after this win, or I just have a feeling that something is a little bit different after that game. After the Colts game, I'm glad we won, but there was still something that I'm like, I don't know if we'll go beat the Bears because the way that they came back and everything, the vibe still wasn't right. The vibe seems a lot better, and I just have a feeling that the Packers may drop one right here where they overlook us. They see our bad record. They don't take us seriously, and we sneak one out. As I say, I think we may steal an interception, and that's all it takes. But I still think that they'll get theirs, as we've seen, even when the Vikings got up on them big, they fought back to almost winning it. So they're not going to go away, even if they let us take an early lead. So this game is going to have to be a high one. And I think we win 34-30.
Wow. Joey is vibing over there.
I think the defense will still be bad, but I think Trevor is on a roll. I think BTJ is on a roll, and I think Tank is on a roll, and this offense is going to figure out a way to win it.
That is a lot of Teal Kool-Aid.
I've been watching the highlights of last game and the highlights of the Colts. Just if it is going to happen, it's this game. No, I'm not going to even say this is it because that's when I get let down. I'm just saying there's nothing left to lose. Don't even think about the playoffs. Just go win this game.
Well, I hope the Jags are listening because honestly, Joey, you've got more fire right now than it feels like sometimes the rest of the Jags coaching staff, and you've got more belief than perhaps the Jags players right now. So hopefully they listen and we can catch fire. I mean, it'd be nice to have a win streak in Jacksonville again and at least just 2 in a row. But we're going to find out Sunday. Big game in Everbank. Jags, Packers. It could be potentially a shootout, a very fun game, a game that you're going to want to watch every second of it, hopefully. And make sure to drop a 5-star rating or review wherever you're listening to this podcast. Drop some comments if you're watching on YouTube or if you're engaging with us on Twitter as well. We love to engage with Jags fans. But hopefully, we're going to be saying this a ton on Sunday with a lot of Jags success, and that is Duval.
Duval till I die.